4 German shepherds, was crying from a deep cave. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The 4 German shepherds wouldn't stop crying. Their howls echoed through the Montana wilderness like a funeral song. And what 5-year-old Tommy Miller did next would leave an entire town sobbing. Before we begin this incredible story, hit that like button, share with someone who loves dogs, and comment below where you're watching from. The morning started like any other Saturday. Tommy Miller bounced on his grandfather Ben's old truck seat as they drove down the dirt road toward their favorite hiking trail. The sun painted the mountains gold, and Tommy pressed his small nose against the window, counting the deer they passed. 3, 4, 5. "Grandpa, why do dogs cry?" Tommy asked suddenly. Ben's weathered hands gripped the steering wheel. "Same reason people do, kiddo. When something hurts too much to keep inside." Neither of them knew those words would haunt them within the hour. The trail was empty. October meant most tourists had gone home, leaving the forest to locals who knew these paths like the lines on their palms. Tommy ran ahead, his red jacket a splash of color against the brown leaves. His small boots kicked up dust clouds. Ben followed slowly, his bad knee complaining with each step. "Stay where I can see you," Ben called out. Tommy waved without looking back. He was busy examining a stick that looked exactly like a sword. Everything was perfect. Everything was normal. Then the howling started. It wasn't like any sound Tommy had heard before. Not the playful barks from the neighbor's beagle. Not the warning growls from the ranch dogs. This was different, raw, desperate. The kind of sound that made your stomach twist into knots. "Grandpa?" Tommy's voice came out small. Ben caught up, breathing hard. The howls came again, closer this time. Multiple voices joining together in a chorus of pure anguish. Tommy grabbed his grandfather's hand. Ben's fingers were cold. "Sounds like dogs," Ben said. "Hurt, maybe. We have to help them." "Tommy, we don't know what..." But Tommy was already moving toward the sound. That was the thing about Tommy. While other kids his age were learning to tie their shoes, Tommy was learning something else from his late mother. She'd been a veterinarian, and even though Tommy barely remembered her face, he remembered her words. "When an animal cries for help, you answer." The howls pulled them off the main trail, through thick brush that scratched at their legs, over fallen logs covered in moss. The forest grew darker here, the trees so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground. Ben's breathing got heavier, his knee was getting worse. "Tommy, slow down." But Tommy couldn't slow down. The crying was getting louder, more desperate, and underneath the howls he heard something else. Barking, sharp, urgent barks like warnings. They pushed through a wall of pine branches and stopped. 4 German shepherds stood, in a semicircle around what looked like a pile of rocks. But it wasn't just rocks. There was an opening, a cave entrance, partially hidden by years of fallen branches and dead leaves. The dogs were magnificent even in their distress. Their coats shone black and tan in the filtered sunlight. But their eyes were wild with panic. The largest dog, a male with a scarred ear, saw them first. He stopped howling. The others followed. For a moment, the forest went silent except for Ben's labored breathing. "Don't move," Ben whispered. But the dog with the scarred ear did something unexpected. He lowered his head, not in aggression, but in something that looked like pleading. He took 3 steps toward Tommy, then 3 steps back toward the cave. Again, 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. "He wants us to follow," Tommy said. "Dogs don't..." The scarred dog barked once, sharp and clear. Then he did it again. 3 steps toward them, 3 steps toward the cave. The other dogs joined in, creating a path between the humans and the cave entrance. Tommy noticed something that made his heart skip. Around the scarred dog's neck was a collar, a blue collar with a silver tag that caught the light. He squinted to read it. "Max," Tommy read out loud. "His name is Max." Ben's face went white. "The missing dog posters. From town. These are the Chen family dogs." 3 days ago, posters had appeared on every telephone pole in their small town. 4 German shepherds missing. Sarah Chen's phone number at the bottom. A reward offered, but everyone assumed the dogs had run off, maybe chasing deer too far into the wilderness. Max barked again, more urgently this time. He actually grabbed Tommy's jacket sleeve with his teeth, gentle but insistent, pulling him toward the cave. "Something's in there," Tommy said. "Something they want us to see." Ben pulled out his phone. No signal. They were too deep in the forest. He looked at the cave entrance. It was narrow, maybe 3 feet wide at most. The rocks around it were sharp, jagged. Not the kind of place you'd want to explore even on a good day. But the dogs wouldn't stop. They were crying again, all 4 of them, creating a sound that seemed to pierce straight through to your soul. One of them, a female with a white patch on her chest, was actually pawing at the ground near the entrance. Her paws were bleeding. She'd been digging. "How long have they been here?" Tommy asked. Before Ben could answer, they heard it, a sound from deep within the cave, faint but unmistakable. A human voice, weak, calling for help. Tommy moved before Ben could stop him. He dropped to his knees at the cave entrance. The opening was small, but Tommy was smaller. He could fit. "Absolutely not," Ben said, grabbing Tommy's shoulder. "We go back. We get help." "That's 3 miles, Grandpa. Your knee is bad. It'll take hours." "I don't care. You're not going in there." Max suddenly pressed against Ben's leg, nearly knocking the old man over. The dog's whole body was shaking. The other 3 dogs formed a circle around them, their cries reaching a fever pitch. Tommy looked at the cave entrance again. There were scratch marks on the rocks, fresh ones, blood smeared across the stone, not from the dogs. The blood formed a pattern, like someone had tried to crawl out but couldn't. "Someone's hurt in there," Tommy said. "Really hurt." The voice came again from the cave, weaker this time. It sounded like a woman. "Please." The word drifted out like smoke. Tommy looked up at his grandfather. Mom would go in. Those 3 words hit Ben like a physical blow. His daughter would have, without hesitation. She'd died trying to save horses from a barn fire. Tommy had her eyes, the same stubborn set to his jaw. "The cave could collapse," Ben said. "You could get stuck. I'm small. I can fit. You don't know what's in there. Someone who needs help." Max walked to the cave entrance and lay down, his head on his paws. He looked back at Tommy and whined. The message was clear. Please. Ben's hands were shaking now. He looked at the cave, at his grandson, at the dogs who wouldn't stop crying. He thought about Sarah Chen, the woman who ran the bakery in town. She always gave Tommy free cookies. Her husband had died last year. These dogs were all she had left. "If you go in," Ben said slowly, "you stay near the entrance. If anything feels wrong, you come right back out." Tommy nodded, already pulling off his jacket. It would only get caught on the rocks. Underneath, he wore a thin t-shirt that wouldn't snag as easily. "Take this." Ben handed him a small flashlight from his backpack. "And this. A whistle. If you need me, blow it." Tommy took both items. His hands were steady. 5 years old, and his hands were steadier than his grandfather's. He got on his belly and looked into the cave. The flashlight beam showed a narrow tunnel that went down at an angle. The walls were wet. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. The air smelled like earth and something else, something metallic. Blood. "I'm coming," Tommy called into the darkness. "Hold on." "I'm coming." He started to crawl. The rock scraped against his skin immediately. The tunnel was tighter than it looked. Tommy had to keep his arms stretched out in front of him, pushing the flashlight forward, then pulling his body after it. The ceiling was so low it touched his back. Behind him, he could hear the dogs barking, encouraging him, or warning him. He couldn't tell which. The tunnel went down sharper than expected. Tommy had to brace himself to keep from sliding. Water made the rock slippery. His shirt was soaked within seconds. Cold water that seemed to seep into his bones. "Hello?" he called out. "Can you hear me?" A sound came back, not words, something between a moan and a cry. Tommy crawled faster. The flashlight beam bounced wildly off the walls. He saw something that made him stop. Fabric. Torn fabric caught on a sharp rock, the same blue as Sarah Chen's jacket in the missing posters. The tunnel opened up slightly. Tommy could raise his head a few inches. He swept the flashlight around and gasped. The beam illuminated a larger chamber. Not huge, maybe the size of a small bedroom. But that wasn't what made Tommy's breath catch. Sarah Chen was there. She was wedged between 2 large rocks, her leg bent at an impossible angle. Her face was pale, so pale it looked like paper. Her lips were blue. but her eyes were open, watching him with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. "You're a child," she whispered. Tommy crawled closer. The chamber floor was covered in loose rocks. They shifted under his weight. Some fell into darkness he couldn't see the bottom of. "I'm Tommy. The dogs brought us." Tears streamed down Sarah's face. "My dogs? They stayed?" "All 4 of them. They wouldn't leave." Sarah tried to move and cried out in pain. The rocks holding her shifted slightly, and Tommy heard a grinding sound that made his stomach drop. The cave wasn't stable. "How long have you been here?" Tommy asked. 3 days, maybe 4. I don't know anymore." Her voice was so weak Tommy had to lean closer to hear. "I was looking for Max. He ran off chasing something. I followed him here, and..." The ground gave way. Tommy shone his flashlight around the chamber. He could see where part of the ceiling had collapsed, creating the rock pile that trapped Sarah. But there was something else. In the corner, protected by Sarah's body, was a cardboard box, and from inside the box came tiny sounds, whimpering. "What's in the box?" Tommy asked. Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. "Max's puppies. His mate had them here. That's why he ran off. He heard her crying. She didn't make it. The cave-in. She couldn't finish." Tommy crawled to the box. Inside were 2 tiny puppies, maybe a week old. Their eyes weren't even open yet. They were cold, barely moving. "I've been trying to keep them warm," Sarah whispered. "But I can't move. I can't." Tommy understood now. Sarah hadn't just been trapped. She'd been trapped trying to save the puppies. She could have maybe crawled out before the rocks shifted, but not while protecting them. "We need to get you out," Tommy said. "The rocks? If they move wrong, the whole ceiling could come down." Tommy looked at the rock pinning Sarah's leg. It was huge, far too heavy for him to move. But maybe... He studied the formation. His mom had taught him about leverage when they'd built a treehouse together, one of his last memories of her. "Small forces can move big weights if you're smart about it," she'd said. There was a smaller rock wedged under the big one. If he could move that, maybe the weight would shift just enough. "I'm going to try something," Tommy said. "No, it's too dangerous. Go get help." "There's no time." Tommy could hear it in her voice. She was fading. 3 days without water, with a broken leg, in the cold. She wouldn't last until... He got back with help. He put the flashlight down, angling it so it lit up the rocks. Then he started working on the smaller stone. His small fingers could fit into gaps adult hands couldn't reach. He pulled and twisted, ignoring the sharp edges that cut his palms. The rock moved, just an inch. But that inch caused a chain reaction. The grinding sound came again, louder this time. Dust fell from the ceiling. A crack appeared in the wall, spreading like lightning. "Get out!" Sarah screamed. "The cave is collapsing." But Tommy didn't run. Instead, he grabbed the puppy box with one hand and Sarah's jacket with the other. "We go together," he said. The crack in the wall widened. Water started seeping through. Not a drip anymore, but a steady stream. The rocks above them groaned like a living thing in pain. Sarah looked at this 5-year-old boy, and something passed between them. An understanding. He wasn't leaving without her. "The rock on my leg," she said quickly. "When it shifts, I'll have maybe 2 seconds before it settles again. You'll have to pull me." Tommy nodded. He put the puppy box by the tunnel entrance, then came back to Sarah. He grabbed her under her arms. She bit her lip to keep from screaming at the pain. "On 3, Tommy said. The ceiling made a sound like breaking bones. 1. More dust fell. Tommy could taste it. 2. The water was ankle deep now and rising. 3. Tommy pulled with every ounce of strength in his small body. Sarah pushed with her good leg. The rock shifted, lifted for just a moment, and Sarah's trapped leg slid free. She screamed, the sound echoing off the walls. But she was free. "The tunnel!" Tommy gasped. "Now!" Sarah tried to crawl, but her broken leg was useless. Tommy got behind her and pushed while she pulled herself forward with her arms. Behind them, the chamber was falling apart. Rocks the size of basketballs were falling from the ceiling. They reached the tunnel entrance. Tommy pushed the puppy box in first, then helped Sarah start her crawl up. She was bigger than him. Her body barely fit. Every movement was agony for her, Tommy could tell. but she kept going. "I'm right behind you," Tommy said. That was when he realized his mistake. With Sarah in the tunnel, there was no room for him to follow. The tunnel was too narrow for two people. He would have to wait until she was completely out. The chamber behind him was flooding now. Water rushed in through the widening cracks. Cold mountain water that was already up to Tommy's waist, and rising fast. Sarah must have realized it too because she tried to back up. "No!" Tommy shouted. "Keep going! Get the puppies out! I'm not leaving you! The dogs need you! Keep going!" Tommy could hear barking from outside. Max and the others knew something was wrong. Their barks were frantic now. Sarah crawled faster, sobbing with pain and fear. Tommy watched her feet disappear up the tunnel. The water was at his chest now. He was so cold, he couldn't feel his legs. A massive crack split the air. Tommy looked back to see the entire back wall of the chamber give way. A wall of water and mud rushed toward him. He dove for the tunnel entrance just as the wave hit. The force of the water actually helped, pushing him up into the tunnel, but it also filled the narrow space quickly. Tommy held his breath and pulled himself forward, fighting against the current that wanted to drag him back. His lungs burned. Black spots danced in his vision. He could hear something above the rush of water. Barking. Max was barking. Tommy's hand broke through into open air. Immediately he felt teeth on his wrist. Gentle but firm. Max had him. The dog pulled while Tommy pushed, and suddenly he was out, gasping and coughing up muddy water. But there was no time to rest. The ground around the cave entrance was crumbling. The whole hillside was giving way. "Run!" Ben shouted. He had Sarah over his shoulder in a fireman's carry, bad knee forgotten in the adrenaline. Tommy grabbed the puppy box. The 4 German shepherds formed a protective circle around them as they stumbled away from the collapsing cave. They made it maybe 50 feet before the ground where they had been standing disappeared entirely. The cave, the entrance, everything collapsed into a sinkhole that seemed to swallow half the hillside. They stood there, breathing hard, covered in mud and blood, watching the destruction. Sarah was unconscious. The puppies were crying weakly. Tommy's hands were shaking so bad he could barely hold the box. Max walked over and licked Tommy's face. Then the big dog lay down and put his head in the boy's lap. The other 3 dogs surrounded them, their warm bodies pressing close. "We need to get to the truck," Ben said. His voice sounded strange, broken. "We need to get Sarah to a hospital." Tommy nodded, but he didn't move yet. He was looking at the puppies, so small, so helpless. They'd almost died. Sarah had almost died protecting them. "Why?" Tommy asked. "Why did she stay with them? She could have saved herself." Ben was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "Same reason you went into that cave. Sometimes doing the right thing isn't about being safe." They fashioned a stretcher from branches and Ben's jacket. The dogs helped, seeming to understand they needed to be gentle. Max carried the puppy box in his mouth, never letting it tip or jostle. The 3-mile hike back to the truck took 2 hours. Ben's knee gave out twice. Both times, the German shepherds positioned themselves so he could lean on them. They moved as a unit, 2 humans, 4 dogs, and 2 puppies, who didn't even know yet that they'd almost lost everything. Sarah woke up once during the journey, her eyes focused on Tommy. "The puppies?" she whispered. "Safe," Tommy told her. "Everyone's safe." She smiled and passed out again. When they finally reached the truck, Ben's hands were shaking too badly to drive. He called 911, and within minutes, the forest was full of sirens, paramedics, police, even a news crew that had been monitoring the emergency channels. As they loaded Sarah into the ambulance, she grabbed Tommy's hand. "You saved my life," she said. Tommy shook his head. "Max saved you." He wouldn't give up. Sarah looked at her dog, who hadn't left her side. "He learned that from someone," she said, looking back at Tommy. "Dogs only know what we teach them about love." The paramedics said they had to go. Sarah was rushed to the hospital. Animal control tried to take the German shepherds, but they wouldn't leave Tommy. All 4 dogs planted themselves around the boy and refused to budge. "It's okay," Tommy told the officer. "They're just scared." The officer looked at this 5-year-old boy, covered in mud and blood, surrounded by 4 massive German shepherds who looked ready to protect him against the world. "What exactly happened out there?" the officer asked. Ben spoke for the first time in a while. My grandson heard dogs crying and decided to answer. The story spread through town like wildfire. By the time they got home, their street was full of people. Everyone wanted to know how a 5-year-old boy had done what seemed impossible. Tommy didn't know how to explain it. He just kept saying, "The dog showed me. They knew where she was." That night, Tommy couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the cave, the water, the moment when he thought he wouldn't make it out. Ben found him sitting by the window at 2 a.m., watching the stars. "Scared?" Ben asked. "No," Tommy said. Then, "Maybe a little." "That's normal. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do what needs doing anyway." "Is Sarah going to be okay?" The doctors said yes. "Her leg is broken in 3 places, but she'll heal." "And the puppies?" "The vet has them. They're weak but fighting." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Mom would have done the same thing, wouldn't she?" Ben's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah, kiddo, she would have. I miss her." "Me too." They sat together in silence, watching the stars. Somewhere in town, 4 German shepherds were curled up on a hospital floor, refusing to leave their owner's room. The nurses had given up trying to make them leave. Max kept his eyes on Sarah's face, watching each breath, making sure she was still there. The next morning brought reporters. They all wanted to interview the hero boy, but Tommy didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired and sore. His hands were wrapped in bandages from all the cuts. "I just did what anyone would do," he told them. But that wasn't true, and everyone knew it. Most people would have gone for help. Most people wouldn't have crawled into a collapsing cave. Most 5-year-olds wouldn't have even understood what the dogs were trying to tell them. Sarah called from the hospital that afternoon. Ben put her on speaker. "Tommy," she said, her voice stronger now, "the doctors told me what you did. How you pushed me out first. How you almost drowned." "I'm okay," Tommy said quickly. "I know you are. But I need you to know something. Those puppies. Max's mate died protecting them. I stayed because I couldn't let her sacrifice be for nothing. And you made sure it wasn't." Tommy didn't know what to say to that. "The puppies are going to make it," Sarah continued. "The vet says they're fighters, like someone else I know." After the call, Ben took Tommy to visit the puppies at the vet clinic. They were in an incubator, tiny bodies rising and falling with each breath. They looked so fragile. "Can I touch them?" Tommy asked the vet. "Gently," she said. Tommy reached in and stroked one puppy's head with a single finger. The puppy made a small sound and pressed against his touch. "This one's a boy," the vet said. "The other's a girl. Sarah wants you to name them." Tommy thought about it. "Brave," he said, touching the boy, "and Hope for the girl." The vet smiled. "Perfect names." Days passed. Sarah's story was picked up by national news. The footage of the collapsed cave was shown over and over. Experts said it was a miracle anyone had survived. The cave system had been unstable for years, weakened by underground streams. It had been a death trap waiting to happen. But the real story, the one that made people cry, was the security footage from the hospital. It showed 4 German shepherds walking through the automatic doors, past security, straight to Sarah's room. No one had brought them. They'd found their own way, traveling 5 miles from where animal control had taken them. The footage showed them lying down around Sarah's bed, taking shifts watching her. When nurses came to check on her, Max would lift his head, make sure they were being gentle, then lay back down. It was like they were guarding her. A week later, Sarah was released from the hospital. Tommy and Ben were there with a wheelchair and a welcome home banner. But the real welcome came from her dogs. They nearly knocked her over with their joy, tails wagging so hard their whole bodies shook. "Gentle," Sarah laughed through her tears. "I'm still broken." But broken didn't matter to them. She was alive. She was there. That was everything. Sarah insisted Tommy and Ben come to her house. She had something to show them. Using crutches, she led them to her backyard where she'd set up a small pen. Inside were Brave and Hope, now 2 weeks old, their eyes just starting to open. "I want Tommy to have Brave," Sarah said. "When he's old enough, if that's okay." Ben started to protest. They lived in a small apartment. They couldn't afford a dog. But then he saw Tommy's face. The boy was looking at the puppy like it was the most precious thing in the world. "We'll make it work," Ben said. Sarah smiled. I knew you would. As they watched the puppies sleep, Max came over and leaned against Tommy. The big dog hadn't left the boy's side since the rescue, Sarah noticed. He knows what you did, she said. Dogs don't forget. Not ever. Tommy hugged Max. The dog's fur was warm and soft. He smelled like sunshine and earth. I won't forget either, Tommy whispered. The story could have ended there. A happy ending. Everyone saved. But life isn't that simple, and the best stories never really end. They just change. 3 weeks after the rescue, Tommy started having nightmares. He'd wake up gasping, feeling like he was drowning. Ben would find him standing in the bathroom, running water over his hands, making sure he could still feel them. It's normal, the doctor said. Trauma response. He's 5 years old. His brain is trying to process something most adults couldn't handle. They tried therapy. The therapist had toys and games, ways to help Tommy talk about what happened. But Tommy didn't want to talk. He just wanted to forget the feeling of water filling his lungs. Then Sarah had an idea. Bring him to my house, she said. The dogs will help. Ben wasn't sure about it, but they tried. The moment Tommy walked through Sarah's door, all 4 German shepherds surrounded him. Not aggressively, protectively. Max pressed against his leg. The female with the white patch, Luna, licked his hand. The other 2, Storm and Shadow, flanked him like bodyguards. They know, Sarah said softly. They have nightmares too, about those 3 days, about almost losing everything. Tommy sat on the floor, and the dogs created a pile around him. Their breathing was steady, rhythmic, their heartbeat strong and sure. For the first time in weeks, Tommy felt safe. Can I tell you a secret? Sarah asked, sitting down beside them, with her legs still in a cast. Tommy nodded. I have nightmares too. About the cave, about the water, about what would have happened if you hadn't come. Really? Really. But you know what helps? Remembering that we survived, all of us. Even when everything went wrong, we found a way through. Tommy thought about that. Because we helped each other. Exactly. From that day on, Tommy visited Sarah and the dogs every day after school. The nightmares didn't go away immediately, but they got quieter, less sharp. The dogs seemed to know when one was coming. Max would put his big head on Tommy's lap and huff, like he was saying, I'm here. You're safe. The puppies grew fast. Brave was the spitting image of his father, all courage and loyalty. Hope was smaller, gentler, but fierce when she needed to be. Tommy helped raise them, teaching them basic commands, how to walk on a leash, how to trust even when the world felt scary. The town watched this unusual family form. The boy who'd crawled into darkness, the woman who'd refused to abandon the innocent, the dogs who'd refused to abandon her. They became a symbol of something people needed to believe in, that love and loyalty could overcome the worst moments. But the story wasn't done with its surprises. 1 month after the rescue, a geologist studying the cave collapse made a discovery. The sinkhole had revealed something unexpected. An old mine shaft from the 1800s, and inside it, something that would change everything. The surveyor's report was clinical, but the implications were staggering. The mine contained a significant vein of silver, untouched for over a century. The land belonged to the state, but there was an old law about rescue rights. Anyone who saved a life on state land could claim a finder's fee. We don't want money, Ben said immediately when the state representative visited. We didn't do it for a reward, but the representative insisted. It's not a reward, it's the law. And frankly, after what your grandson did, the state wants to do something. The amount they offered was enough to change everything. Enough for Ben to buy a house with a yard. Enough for Tommy's college fund. Enough to ensure they could keep Brave when he was old enough. Tommy had only one question. Can Sarah get some too? She almost died saving the puppies, the representative smiled. Already taken care of. She's getting the same amount. Sarah cried when she heard. Her bakery had been struggling since her husband died. This would save it. She could keep her house, her dogs, everything she'd almost lost. It's like the mountain rewarded us for doing the right thing, she told Tommy, but Tommy shook his head. The mountain almost killed us. We rewarded each other. Sarah hugged him then, this 5-year-old philosopher who'd saved her life. The local news wanted to do a follow-up story. They interviewed Tommy in Sarah's backyard, surrounded by all 6 dogs. The puppies were 8 weeks old now, tumbling over each other, chewing on Tommy's shoelaces. "What did you learn from all this?" the reporter asked. Tommy thought about it. He looked at Max, who was watching him with those intelligent brown eyes. He looked at Sarah, alive and smiling despite her crutches. He looked at his grandfather, who'd carried a grown woman 3 miles on a bad knee because that's what needed doing. "I learned that crying isn't weak," Tommy said finally. "The dogs cried for help. Sarah cried when she was trapped. I cried when I thought I wouldn't make it out. But crying is just asking for help, and asking for help is how we save each other." The reporter was visibly moved. "That's very wise for someone so young." Tommy shrugged. "My mom taught me. Before she died, she said the bravest thing you can do is admit when you need someone." The interview aired that night. The station's phones rang for hours, people calling in tears, parents hugging their children, pet owners looking at their dogs differently, wondering what they were capable of, what love could drive them to do. But the most important call came from someone unexpected. "Hello," the voice said when Ben answered. "My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I'm a veterinarian in Seattle. I saw the interview. I knew Tommy's mother. We went to veterinary school together." Ben's hand tightened on the phone. "You knew Jennifer?" "Yes, and I have something that belongs to Tommy. Something Jennifer left with me before she died. She said to give it to him when he was old enough to understand. I think he's ready now." They met Dr. Webb the next day at Sarah's house. He was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He carried a small wooden box. "Jennifer knew she was sick," he said gently. "The cancer was aggressive. She had maybe 6 months. She spent those months preparing things for Tommy. This was one of them." He handed the box to Tommy. Inside was a leather journal, worn and loved. Tommy opened it carefully. His mother's handwriting filled the pages. But it wasn't a diary. It was a book of lessons. Each page had a different title. How to be brave. How to help. How to love even when it hurts. Tommy couldn't read all the words yet, but Ben helped him with the first entry. "My dear Tommy, if you're reading this, it means you're old enough to understand that I'm gone. But I'm not really gone. I'm in every kind thing you do, every animal you help, every person you save. I'm in your courage and your tears and your laughter. The world will tell you that strength means not feeling, not crying, not needing anyone. The world is wrong. Strength is loving so much it hurts and doing it anyway. Be strong, my love. Be kind. Be brave enough to cry when you need to." Tommy held the journal to his chest. Around him, 6 dogs pressed close, as if they understood. Sarah put her hand on his shoulder. Ben wiped his eyes. "She knew, Doctor," Webb said softly. "Somehow, she knew what kind of person you'd become." Tommy looked up at him. "How?" "Because she was the same. I once saw her crawl into a drainage pipe to save a cat. Another time, she stayed up 3 days straight to save a horse everyone else had given up on. You're her son. Of course you'd crawl into a cave to save a life." That night, Tommy read more of the journal with Ben's help. Each entry was a gift, a piece of his mother he'd thought was lost forever. But one entry stood out. "Tommy, you'll probably have a dog someday. When you do, remember this. Dogs teach us the purest form of love. They love without conditions, without judgment, without ever giving up. Learn from them. Love like a dog loves, completely, loyally, and with your whole heart. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Tommy looked at Brave, sleeping in his little bed. The puppy was dreaming, his paws twitching like he was running. Maybe chasing rabbits, maybe running to save someone. Who knew what dogs dreamed about? "I'll love like you loved, Mom," Tommy whispered to the journal. "I promise." The weeks that followed brought changes no one expected. Tommy's story had touched something deep in people's hearts, and letters started arriving from all over the country. Children wrote about their own pets. Parents shared stories of bravery. But one letter stood out from the rest. It came in the official envelope with a government seal. Ben's hands shook as he opened it. "What is it?" "Grandpa?" Tommy asked, looking up from where he was playing with Brave on the living room floor. Ben read the letter twice before answering. "It's from the governor's office. They want to give you an award, the Young Heroes Medal." Tommy wrinkled his nose. "I don't want a medal. I just want Brave to get better." The puppy had been sick for 2 days. Nothing serious, the vet said, just a stomach bug. But Tommy hadn't left his side. sleeping on the floor next to Brave's bed, making sure he drank water, singing the same lullabies his mother used to sing to him. The ceremony is next month, Ben continued. They want Sarah and the dogs there too. Tommy considered this. All the dogs? All of them. Then okay. But only if Brave feels better. Brave did get better, and as the ceremony approached, something strange started happening in town. People began sharing their own stories of dogs who'd saved lives, protected children, found lost hikers. It was like Tommy's story had awakened something, a recognition of the bond between humans and dogs that ran deeper than most people realized. Sarah's bakery became a gathering place for these stories. She'd set up a wall of photos, dogs and their humans, each with a small card telling their tale. Max's photo was in the center, the scarred ear that made him unique, clearly visible. "He got that scar saving me once before," Sarah told Tommy one afternoon as they looked at the wall. 2 years ago, a man tried to rob the bakery. Max put himself between us. The man had a knife. Tommy reached up to touch the photo. "He's always been brave." "No," Sarah said softly. "He learned to be brave, just like we all do, through love." The day of the ceremony arrived gray and drizzling. Tommy wore his only suit, the one from his mother's funeral. It was too small now, the sleeves ending inches above his wrists. But he didn't complain. The governor's mansion was intimidating, all white columns and perfect lawns. Tommy held Ben's hand tighter as they walked up the steps. Sarah was already there with all 4 adult dogs on leashes. She'd trained them for weeks to behave in crowds, but Tommy could see Max's eyes scanning constantly, protective even here. "You ready for this, kiddo?" Ben asked. Tommy nodded, but his stomach was doing flips. He didn't like being the center of attention. He just wanted to go home and play with Brave and Hope. The ceremony hall was packed, hundreds of people, all looking at him. Tommy's legs felt like jelly. Then he felt a familiar pressure against his leg. Max had broken from Sarah's hold and come to him. The big dog stood steady, letting Tommy lean on him. The governor was a tall woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She knelt down to Tommy's level when presenting the medal. "Tommy Miller," she said, her voice carrying through the hall. "You showed courage that most adults never find. But more than that, you showed compassion. You heard a cry for help and answered it, no matter the cost." She pinned the medal to his jacket. The weight of it surprised him. Such a small thing to represent such a big moment. "Do you want to say anything?" the governor asked gently. Tommy looked out at all those faces. Cameras flashed, people waited. Max pressed closer, and Tommy found his voice. "I didn't do it alone," he said. "Max and Luna and Storm and Shadow, they're the real heroes. They stayed with Sarah for 3 days. They didn't eat. They didn't leave. They just loved her so much they couldn't give up. I only helped for a few minutes. They helped for days." He looked down at Max. "And Sarah stayed with the puppies even though she was hurt. She could have saved herself, but she didn't. That's what love does. It makes you stay even when leaving would be easier." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then another. Soon the whole room was on their feet, but they weren't clapping for Tommy. They were clapping for the dogs, who stood confused but patient, tails wagging slowly. After the ceremony, a reporter pulled Tommy aside. "That was beautiful, what you said. Where did you learn to think like that?" Tommy pulled out his mother's journal, now worn from daily reading. "My mom taught me. She wrote it all down before she died. Can you share one of her lessons?" Tommy opened to a page he'd memorized. "Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. Choose to love even when it's hard. Choose to help even when you're scared. Choose to stay even when you want to run. That's what makes us human." The reporter had tears in her eyes. "Your mother sounds amazing." "She was," Tommy said simply. But the day wasn't over. As they were leaving, a man in an expensive suit approached them. He had the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mr. Miller," he said to Ben, "I represent a television production company. We'd like to buy the rights to Tommy's story, make it into a movie." Ben started to respond, but Tommy spoke first. "No." The man blinked. "No? You haven't even heard the offer. It's quite substantial. I don't care. It's not just my story. It's Sarah's and Max's and all of theirs. You can't buy it." The man's smile tightened. "Everything has a price, young man." Max growled, low and warning. The man stepped back. Not everything, Tommy said. Not love. They left the man standing there, still trying to understand how a 5-year-old had just turned down more money than most people see in a lifetime. In the car ride home, Ben asked, "You know that was a lot of money, right?" "I know," Tommy said. "But Mom wrote something about that too. She said money can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy the way Max looks at Sarah. It can't buy the way Brave trusts me. Those things you have to earn." Ben nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "You're right, kiddo. You're absolutely right." But that night, everything changed. Tommy woke to the sound of breaking glass, then barking, fierce, aggressive barking. He recognized Max's voice immediately. Ben was already up, baseball bat in hand. "Stay in your room," he ordered Tommy. But Tommy could hear Sarah screaming from next door. They'd moved into the new house just last week, right beside Sarah's place. The yards connected. Something was wrong. Tommy ran to his window. In the moonlight, he could see figures in Sarah's yard. 3 men in dark clothes. They had tools, crowbars. They were trying to get into the kennel where Sarah kept the dogs at night. Max was at the fence, teeth bared, protecting his pack. Luna was beside him. Storm and Shadow flanked them. But the men had weapons. One raised a crowbar. Tommy didn't think. He grabbed the whistle Ben had given him for the cave and ran outside. The whistle's shriek pierced the night. The men spun around. Tommy stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, all 4 feet nothing of him, facing 3 grown men. "Leave them alone," he said. One man laughed. "Go back inside, kid. This isn't about you." "Everything about these dogs is about me," Tommy said. He took a step forward. The men seemed confused by this tiny child's complete lack of fear. Sarah appeared at her back door, phone in hand. "Police are coming!" The men looked at each other. Sirens were already wailing in the distance. They'd run out of time. "This isn't over," one said. Then they ran, disappearing into the darkness. But one dropped something, a piece of paper. Tommy picked it up. It was a flyer for a dog fighting ring, with Max's picture circled. Someone had recognized him from all the news coverage. A champion bloodline German shepherd who'd shown incredible loyalty and strength. He'd be worth thousands in the fighting rings. Tommy felt sick. People had seen the story of love and loyalty and thought only of money and violence. Sarah limped over, still on her crutches. "Tommy, you shouldn't have come out. It was dangerous. They were going to hurt Max. They were going to steal him. All of them. I heard them talking. They said dogs that loyal would fight to the death for their owners." The police arrived, but the men were long gone. The officer took the flyer as evidence, but warned them this might not be the last attempt. "These dogs are famous now," he said. "That makes them targets." That night, no one slept. Ben moved a cot into Tommy's room. Sarah brought all 4 dogs inside. They created a fortress of love and protection, but Tommy could feel the fear in the air. The story that had brought them together was now putting them in danger. The next morning, Tommy made a decision. "We need to teach people," he said at breakfast, "about what dogs really are. Not fighters, not property. Family." "How?" Sarah asked. Tommy thought about his mother's journal. Mom wrote about starting a program at schools, teaching kids about animal kindness. She never got to do it, but maybe we can. Sarah and Ben exchanged looks. It was ambitious for a 5-year-old's idea. But then again, Tommy had already done the impossible once. "I'll help," Sarah said. "The bakery can sponsor it. And I'll drive you to schools," Ben added. They started small, Tommy's own kindergarten class. He brought Brave, now 3 months old, and all paws and ears. He told the story of the cave, but more importantly, he told the story of what came after. How Brave had nightmares too, how they helped each other heal. "Dogs feel everything we feel," Tommy told his classmates. "Happy, sad, scared, brave. They just can't use words to tell us. So we have to learn their language." He taught them how to approach a dog safely, how to read body language, how to be gentle. Brave demonstrated by letting 20 kindergartners pet him, his tail never stopping its wag. The program grew. Other schools heard about it and invited them. Sarah brought Max to the older kids, teaching them about responsibility and loyalty. She told them about the 3 days Max had stayed by the cave, about how love means not giving up. But the real magic happened when they visited the juvenile detention center. These were kids who'd made mistakes, some serious ones. They sat in the recreation room with arms crossed, faces hard, pretending not to care about the boy and his dogs. Tommy stood in front of them, Brave at his side, Max and the others behind him. He didn't give them the usual speech about being good or making better choices. Instead, he said something that made them all look up. "People think you're bad dogs." The room went silent. "That's what they call kids like you, right? Bad dogs who need to be locked up, trained, fixed." Tommy's voice was steady. "But there's no such thing as bad dogs. Just scared ones, hurt ones who never learned how to trust." A boy in the back, maybe 15 with tattoos already covering his arms, spoke up. "You don't know anything about us, kid." Tommy looked at him. "I know you're here, which means someone gave up on you. But Max here?" He pointed to the German Shepherd. "He was given up too. His first owner said he was too aggressive, too hard to control. Sarah took him anyway." "So what?" the boy challenged. "So Max saved her life. And mine. The dog everyone said was bad turned out to be the bravest, most loyal friend anyone could have." Tommy paused. "Maybe you're the same. Maybe you just need someone to not give up on you." The tattooed boy's tough expression cracked. "Just a little. Can I pet him?" Max walked over without being commanded. He sat in front of the boy and offered his paw. The boy took it, and something in his face changed, softened. "He likes you," Tommy said. "How do you know?" "Because he's looking at you. Really looking. Dogs don't lie with their eyes." By the end of the visit, every kid had connected with one of the dogs. The supervisor later called it the most breakthrough moment she'd seen in years. 3 of those kids went on to volunteer at animal shelters after their release. The tattooed boy became a dog trainer, but success brought new challenges. The man in the suit returned, this time with lawyers. "You can't stop us from making a movie," he said. "It's a matter of public record now. We'll just change the names." Tommy looked at him with those serious eyes. "Then I'll tell everyone it's not the real story. You're 5 years old. No one will listen to you." Max stood up. All 4 German Shepherds stood up. They didn't growl. They didn't need to. Their presence was enough. "Everyone will listen," Sarah said, stepping forward. "Because the real story is still happening. It's not just about one rescue. It's about what we're doing now. The schools, the programs, the kids we're helping. Make your movie. But know that we'll be out here, living the real story, and everyone will see the difference." The man left again, but this time he didn't come back. 3 months later, they heard his movie had been canceled. No one wanted a fake story when the real one was still unfolding. Winter came early that year. Snow blanketed Montana in November, turning the world white and quiet. Tommy was teaching Brave basic commands in the backyard when he heard it, crying. But not dog crying this time. Human. He followed the sound to the fence. There was a little girl, maybe 3 years old, standing in the alley. She was in a thin jacket, no gloves, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Are you lost?" Tommy asked. She nodded, unable to speak through her sobs. Tommy didn't hesitate. He opened the gate. "Come inside. It's warm." But the girl was scared. She backed away. That's when Brave did something remarkable. The puppy, now 6 months old but still clumsy, walked slowly to the girl. He sat down in the snow and tilted his head, making himself small, unthreatening. The girl stopped crying. She reached out one tiny hand and touched Brave's nose. The puppy licked her fingers gently. "His name is Brave," Tommy said. "He helps scared people feel better." The girl let Tommy lead her inside. Ben called the police while Sarah wrapped her in blankets. Max and the other dogs formed their protective circle, but gentle, careful not to overwhelm her. Her name was Lily. She'd wandered away from her house 3 blocks over, following a cat. Her parents were frantic. When they arrived, they found their daughter sitting on the floor, surrounded by dogs, sharing Tommy's peanut butter sandwich. "She doesn't usually trust strangers," Lily's mother said, tears streaming down her face. "She's autistic. New people terrify her." "Dogs aren't people," Tommy said simply. "Sometimes that makes them easier to trust." Lily's parents wanted to pay them, to reward them somehow. Tommy shook his head. "Just bring her back to visit Brave. They're friends now," and they did. Every week, Lily came to play with Brave. Slowly, she started talking more, first to the dogs, then to Tommy, then to others. Her parents called it a miracle. Tommy called it friendship. The local news picked up this story too. Boy who saved woman from cave now saving lost children. But Tommy didn't like the headline. "I'm not saving anyone," he told the reporter. "The dogs are. I'm just translating." Spring arrived with unexpected news. Sarah's bakery had been chosen for a National Small Business Award. The recognition came with a grant that would let her expand. But Sarah had a different idea. "I want to open a dog therapy center," she told Tommy and Ben over dinner. "A place where kids like Lily can come, where the juvenile detention kids can volunteer, where people can learn what dogs can really do." "That's amazing," Ben said. "There's more," Sarah continued. "I want Tommy to help run it, not now, but when he's older. I want to call it Jennifer's Place, after his mom." Tommy's eyes filled with tears. "Mom would love that." "She would," Sarah agreed. "But I need to know something first. Tommy, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Tommy didn't hesitate. "I want to be like Mom. A veterinarian, but also more. I want to teach people about animals. I want to show them that loving something else more than yourself is what makes us human." "That's a big dream for a small boy," Sarah said gently. "Mom said the size of your body doesn't matter, only the size of your heart." They broke ground on Jennifer's Place that summer. The whole town came to help. The juvenile detention kids were given special permission to join. The boy with tattoos, now 17 and almost done with his sentence, worked harder than anyone. "Why?" Tommy asked him during a water break. "Because you were right," the boy said. "I wasn't a bad dog. I was just scared, and Max showed me that being scared is okay, as long as you don't let it make you mean." The therapy center opened in the fall. It was simple. A barn converted into training spaces, a yard for the dogs to run, a quiet room for kids who needed space to just be with the animals. But it was perfect. The first official therapy session was with a veteran who'd lost his leg in Afghanistan. He'd been paired with Storm, who seemed to sense his pain. The man hadn't spoken to anyone in months, his family said, but something about Storm's steady presence broke through. "I had a dog over there," the veteran said suddenly, his hand on Storm's head. "Saved my unit from an IED. Died doing it. I couldn't save him." Storm leaned into the man, offering comfort without judgment. "It wasn't your fault," Tommy said softly. "Sometimes saving each other means taking turns. He saved you then. Maybe Storm can save you now." The veteran started coming every day. Slowly he began talking more, walking more, living more. 6 months later, he adopted a German Shepherd puppy from the same line as Max. He named it Hero, but not every story had a happy ending. One day, a woman brought in a dog that had been abused, a pit bull named Rosie, covered in scars, afraid of everything. The shelter was going to put her down. Too damaged, they said. Too dangerous. "Please," the woman begged Sarah, "you saved those puppies. Can't you save her?" Sarah looked at Rosie, cowering in the corner, and saw something familiar. The same look Max had when she first found him. The same look the kids in detention had. The look that said, "I've been hurt so much I don't know how to stop hurting." "We'll try," Sarah said. Tommy worked with Rosie every day. He'd sit outside her kennel, reading from his mother's journal, not trying to touch her, just being present, letting her know she wasn't alone. Weeks passed, Rosie stopped cowering, but still wouldn't let anyone close. Some of the volunteers said it was hopeless. But Tommy remembered something his mother had written. "Healing isn't a straight line. It's a spiral. You come back to the same hurt over and over, but each time, you're a little stronger." Then one day, Lily arrived for her session with Brave. She saw Rosie in the kennel and walked over before anyone could stop her. "Sad dog," Lily said in her quiet voice. "Yes," Tommy said. "She's very sad." Lily sat down by the kennel. She didn't try to touch Rosie. She just started humming, a wordless, tuneless sound that somehow held all the comfort in the world. Rosie's ears perked up. She took one step forward, then another. "Keep humming," Tommy whispered. Lily did, and slowly, so slowly it was almost invisible, Rosie lay down near the fence, not touching, but closer than she'd been to any human since her rescue. It became their routine. Every week, Lily would sit and hum to Rosie, and inch by inch, Rosie learned to trust again. The day she finally let Lily pet her through the fence, everyone cried. Even Ben, who claimed he just had allergies. The story of Rosie and Lily spread like the others. People started bringing their broken dogs, their scared cats, their children who didn't fit in anywhere else. Jennifer's place became a beacon of hope in a world that often felt hopeless. But the biggest test came on a cold December morning. Tommy was in the barn, feeding the dogs, when he heard cars, lots of them. He looked out to see black SUVs surrounding the property. Men in suits got out, FBI badges gleaming. "We need your help," the lead agent said. A child had been kidnapped, a 4-year-old boy taken from his home in Seattle. They'd tracked the kidnapper to somewhere in the Montana wilderness, but the trail had gone cold. The snow was coming hard. They had maybe hours before the trail would be completely covered. "We heard about your dogs," the agent continued, "about what they did at the cave. We need them to find this boy." Sarah looked uncertain. "They're not trained search dogs." "No," the agent agreed, "but they found you. And right now, they're our best hope." Tommy stepped forward. "We'll help." They loaded Max, Luna, Storm, and Shadow into the FBI vehicles. Tommy insisted on coming, and after seeing the look in his eyes, no one argued. Brave stayed behind. He was still too young for this kind of work. The command post was in chaos. Maps everywhere. Dozens of Iziast, searchers already out in the blizzard. The boy's parents were there, destroyed by grief and fear. "His name is Marcus," the mother said, showing Tommy a picture. "He's scared of the dark. He has his teddy bear with him. Please." Tommy took the teddy bear's mate. Marcus slept with 2 identical ones. He let each dog smell it. Max's reaction was immediate. His whole body changed, focused, alert. "He's got it," Tommy said. They started where the kidnapper's car had been found abandoned. The snow was falling so hard Tommy could barely see 10 feet ahead. But Max didn't need to see. He had the scent. The dogs worked as a team, just like at the cave. Max led, Luna and Storm flanked, Shadow brought up the rear. They moved through the forest with purpose, ignoring the FBI agents struggling to keep up. 3 hours in, most of the human searchers were ready to give up. The cold was brutal. The snow was knee-deep. But the dogs kept going, and Tommy kept following. Then Max stopped. He barked once, sharp, alert. There was a hunting cabin, almost invisible in the snow, smoke coming from the chimney. The FBI agents moved in carefully. Tommy was told to stay back, but he could hear everything. Shouting, a man's voice, desperate and angry, then a child crying. "He's got the boy," an agent reported. "Hostage situation." They tried negotiating. The kidnapper was the boy's estranged father, mentally ill, off his medication. He thought he was saving his son from imaginary enemies. He had a gun. Hours passed. The negotiator was getting nowhere. The man was spiraling, becoming more agitated. They could hear Marcus crying continuously now. That's when Tommy had an idea. "Let me send Max in," he said. "Absolutely not," the lead agent said. "We're not risking the dog. Not to attack. Just to be there. Sometimes." Tommy thought of all the scared kids at Jennifer's place. Sometimes a dog can reach someone when people can't. The agents debated. Time was running out. The man inside was getting more unstable. Finally, they agreed. Max could go to the door, just to the door. But Max had other plans. The moment they opened the path, he didn't go to the door. He went to the window, and he did something extraordinary. He howled. Not an aggressive howl, not a warning. It was the same howl he'd made at the cave. The howl that said, "Someone needs help." Luna joined him, then Storm and Shadow. 4 voices raised in a harmony of concern. Inside, Marcus heard it. "Doggies!" they heard him shout. "Daddy, doggies!" The man appeared at the window, gun still in hand but lowered. He saw the dogs, 4 German shepherds in the snow, calling out. "They're beautiful," he said, and his voice was different, calmer. "I had a dog once, when I was Marcus's age, Rex. He was my best friend." Tommy stepped forward, despite the agents trying to stop him. "These dogs are friends too," Tommy called out. "They came to help Marcus. They don't want to hurt anyone. They just want everyone to be safe." The man looked at Tommy. A 5-year-old boy in the snow with 4 dogs. "You're just a kid," the man said. "So is Marcus. And he's scared. I know because I was scared once, in a cave. But dogs helped me. They can help Marcus too. And you. I'm not a bad person, the man said. And he was crying now. I just wanted my son. I know, Tommy said. But taking him like this is scaring him. That's not what dads do. Dads protect, like my grandpa protects me, like Max protects everyone. Max stepped forward, tail wagging slowly. Not threatening, inviting. Can Marcus pet the dogs? Tommy asked. If you bring him out? They're very gentle. The man looked at Max. Something in the dog's eyes seemed to reach him. That steady, non-judgmental gaze that said, I see you. I see your pain. It's okay. 20 minutes later, the door opened. The man walked out carrying Marcus. No gun. He set his son down in the snow. Go pet the doggies, he told Marcus. The boy ran to the dogs, who surrounded him immediately, licking his face, warming him with their bodies. The FBI agents moved in, taking the father into custody. But he went peacefully, his eyes never leaving his son. Take care of him, he said to Tommy. Please. The dogs will, Tommy promised. Marcus's mother arrived within the hour. The reunion was everything you'd imagine. Tears, hugs, gratitude that couldn't be put into words, but Marcus wouldn't let go of Max. My doggy, he kept saying. He's not ours, his mother explained gently. Marcus looked at Tommy with those big eyes. Can I visit? Anytime, Tommy said. Max likes making new friends. The FBI wanted to give them a commendation. The media wanted interviews, but Tommy and Sarah just wanted to go home. They were loading the dogs when the lead agent pulled Tommy aside. How did you know? He asked. How did you know the dogs would calm him down? Tommy thought about it. My mom wrote that fear makes people do terrible things, but love makes them stop. The man wasn't evil. He was scared of losing his son. The dogs showed him he didn't have to be scary to be strong. The agent shook his head in amazement. You're 5 years old. Almost 6, Tommy corrected. On the drive home, the dogs slept in a pile in the back of Sarah's van. Tommy sat watching them, thinking about everything that had happened since that day at the cave. How one moment of choosing to help had led to all of this. You okay, kiddo? Ben asked. I was thinking about Mom, Tommy said, about something she wrote. She said every choice we make creates ripples, like throwing a stone in water. She said to make sure your ripples are kind ones. And what do you think? Tommy looked at the sleeping dogs, thought about Marcus safe with his mother, about Lily learning to talk, about Rosie learning to trust, about all the kids at detention learning they weren't bad dogs. I think our ripples are getting bigger, he said. Jennifer's place grew. They added more. Dogs, more programs. Universities started sending students to learn about animal therapy. The detention center made it an official part of rehabilitation. Schools incorporated it into their curriculum. But the most important growth was in Tommy himself. On his 6th birthday, surrounded by dogs and the people who'd become family, he stood up to make a wish. But before he blew out the candles, he spoke. Mom wrote that birthdays aren't just about getting older. They're about becoming more of who you're meant to be. I know who I'm meant to be now. I'm meant to be a bridge between people and animals, between fear and love, between giving up and holding on. He looked at Max, who was watching him with those wise brown eyes. You taught me that, he told the dog. That day at the cave. You showed me that love doesn't give up. Ever. He blew out the candles. Everyone cheered. But in the quiet moment after, Sarah asked, What did you wish for? Tommy smiled. I wish that everyone could feel what I feel when Max looks at me. Like I matter, like I'm worth saving, like I'm loved exactly as I am. That's a big wish, Sarah said. Mom said the best wishes always are. As the party continued around him, Tommy slipped outside with Brave. The puppy was almost full grown now, 90 pounds of loyalty and love. They sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains. We did good, didn't we? Tommy asked the dog. Brave leaned against him, warm and solid and real. In the distance, they could hear Max and the others playing in the yard. They could hear Ben laughing at something Sarah said. They could hear Lily humming to Rosie. They could hear life happening, messy and beautiful, and worth every moment of fear they'd faced to get here. Tommy pulled out his mother's journal, now held together with tape from so much use. He turned to the last entry, the one he'd been saving until he felt ready to read it. "My dearest Tommy," it read. "If you're reading this, it means you've read everything else. It means you've learned about love and loss and courage and kindness. But there's one more thing I need to tell you. The most important thing. You are not here to be perfect. You are not here to save everyone. You are here to love and be loved, to try and fail and try again, to cry when you're sad and laugh when you're happy and help when you can. You are here to be human. And being human means making mistakes. It means being scared. It means not knowing what to do sometimes. But it also means getting up every morning and choosing to try again. I won't be there for your first day of school or your graduation or your wedding. I won't be there to kiss your scraped knees or celebrate your victories. But I'll be in every kind word you speak, every hand you extend to help, every moment you choose love over fear. The dogs will teach you things I never could. They'll show you loyalty without conditions, love without limits, joy without reason. Learn from them, but also teach them. Teach them that humans can be worthy of their devotion. Be brave, my love. Not fearless. Fear keeps us safe, but brave. Brave enough to love, brave enough to help, brave enough to be yourself in a world that will try to change you. And remember, always remember, you were loved from your first breath. You will be loved past your last. Love doesn't end with death. It just changes form. Like water becoming rain, becoming rivers, becoming oceans. Always moving, always present, always finding its way back home. All my love, forever and always, Mom. Tommy closed the journal and held it to his chest. Brave put his head on Tommy's lap, and they sat there as the stars came out, one by one, like promises in the darkness. The next morning brought a new challenge. A call came from a hospital in Billings. They had a child, 8 years old, who hadn't spoken since witnessing his family's car accident. He'd survived. His parents hadn't. Now he sat in silence, unreachable by therapists or counselors. "Will you come?" the doctor asked. "Will you bring the dogs?" Tommy looked at Sarah and Ben. They nodded. The drive to Billings was quiet. Tommy sat in the back with Max and Brave, preparing himself. He'd learned that every broken heart needed something different. You couldn't force healing. You could only offer presence. The boy's name was Daniel. He sat in the hospital playroom, staring at nothing. His aunt sat nearby, tears streaming down her face. "He loved to talk," she said, "never stopped talking, about dinosaurs and space and his dog back home. But since the accident, nothing." Tommy entered the room quietly. Max and Brave followed. They didn't approach Daniel directly. Instead, Tommy sat on the floor a few feet away and started talking. "I lost my mom," he said simply. "Not in a car accident. She got sick. But lost is lost. It hurts the same." Daniel's eyes flickered toward him, but didn't stay. "For a while, I didn't want to talk either. Words felt too heavy, like each one would break me." Tommy pulled out his mother's journal, but then I found out my mom left words for me, in here, and reading them helped me find my own words again. Max walked slowly to Daniel. The boy didn't react. The dog lay down beside him, not touching, just there. "Max lost someone too," Tommy continued, "his mate. She died saving their puppies. He howled for days, dog words for grief. But then he found Sarah, and he learned to be happy again. Not the same happy, but still happy." Daniel's hand moved slightly. His fingers brushed Max's fur. "You don't have to talk," Tommy said. "But if you want to, we'll listen. The dogs are really good listeners. They never interrupt or tell you to feel different than you feel." For an hour they sat in silence. Then Daniel whispered one word. "Buddy? Was that your dog's name?" Tommy asked gently. Daniel nodded. "Tell me about Buddy." And slowly, word by word, Daniel began to speak. About his golden retriever who slept on, his bed, who stole socks and buried them in the yard, who was probably wondering where he was. "Buddy's with your neighbor," Daniel's aunt said, crying harder now. "We can visit him whenever you want." "He probably thinks I forgot him," Daniel said, his voice stronger. "Dogs don't think that way," Tommy said. "They just wait. And when you come back, they love you like you never left. That's their superpower." Daniel looked at Max, then at Tommy. Do you think my parents are waiting somewhere? Like dogs wait? Tommy thought about his mother's words about love changing form. I think love doesn't go away. It just becomes invisible, like air. You can't see it, but it's always there, keeping you alive. Daniel hugged Max then, sobbing into his fur. Max stayed perfectly still, absorbing the boy's grief, offering his steady presence. When they left, Daniel was talking to his aunt about visiting Buddy, about maybe bringing Buddy to meet Max someday, about how his mom would have loved the German Shepherds. Thank you, the aunt said to Tommy. You gave him back his voice. No, Tommy said. He never lost it. He just needed to know someone would understand his words. The drive home was different. Ben kept looking at Tommy in the rearview mirror. You're not really 6 years old, are you? He finally asked. You're some kind of old soul in a little boy's body. Tommy laughed, sounding like the child he was. I'm 6. I just have a good teacher. He patted Max's head. A few good teachers. That night, Tommy couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Daniel, about all the grieving children in the world who thought they were alone. He got up and found Sarah working on paperwork in the kitchen. We need to do more, he said. More? Mobile units. Dogs that can go to hospitals, to disaster sites, to anywhere kids are hurting. We can't wait for them to come to us. Sarah looked at this 6-year-old boy planning to change the world. That would take money. Lots of it. Trained handlers, vehicles. Then we'll figure it out. Mom figured out how to leave me words when she couldn't leave me herself. We can figure this out too. Sarah hugged him. You know what? You're right, we can. They started small. 1 van, donated by a local dealership, touched by their story. Sarah trained volunteer handlers. Tommy worked with the dogs, teaching them to be calm in any situation. Ben drove, his bad knee good enough for that. Their first call came from a town hit by flooding. Families evacuated, children separated from pets, everyone traumatized. They arrived with 4 dogs and left, having helped 30 children process their fear. Word spread. Donations came in. Another van. More dogs. More handlers. Within a year, they had a fleet of 5 vehicles, 20 therapy dogs, and a waiting list of places needing their help. But the work took its toll. Tommy was 7 now, old for his age, carrying weight no child should carry. Ben worried about him. You need to be a kid sometimes, Ben said one evening, watching Tommy train a new rescue dog. This is being a kid, Grandpa. It's just being a different kind of kid. Your mom wouldn't want you to burn out. Tommy considered this. Mom burned bright and fast. She knew her time was limited, so she packed a lifetime of love into a few years. Maybe that's what I'm doing too. Don't say that, Ben said sharply. You're not sick. You have time. Everyone's time is limited, Grandpa. We just don't all know our expiration date. Ben pulled Tommy into a fierce hug. You have time, he repeated. Decades of time. Promise me you'll use it, not just for others, for yourself too. Tommy hugged back. I promise. But life had other plans. The call came on a Tuesday, a school shooting in Wyoming. 3 dead, 12 injured, hundreds traumatized. They needed therapy dogs. They needed help. Tommy wanted to go, but Ben and Sarah said no. It was too dangerous, too traumatic for a 7-year-old. But I understand trauma, Tommy argued. I can help. Not this time, Sarah said firmly. They compromised. The adult handlers would go with most of the dogs. Tommy would stay with Brave and 2 older dogs, continuing the local programs. But the night they left, Tommy couldn't shake the feeling that he was needed there. He thought about his mother's words about choosing love over fear, about being brave enough to help. He made a decision that would change everything. He left a note for Ben, who was sleeping. He took Brave in his emergency backpack, and he started walking toward the bus station. He made it 3 miles before Ben found him. What were you thinking? Ben shouted, angrier than Tommy had ever seen him. I was thinking about the kids, Tommy said quietly, about how scared they must be, about how Brave and I could help. You could have been hurt. You could have been lost. But I wasn't. And those kids are hurt. They are lost. Ben's anger crumbled into fear. I can't lose you too. I lost your mom. I can't lose you. Tommy took his grandfather's weathered hand. You won't lose me by letting me help. You'll lose me by making me be someone I'm not. Ben looked at his grandson, seeing Jennifer's determination in his young face. Your mother was 28 when she died. You're 7. You have to live longer than she did. It's not about how long we live, Grandpa. It's about how much we love while we're here. They sat on the roadside, an old man and a young boy and a dog, while cars passed by, unaware of the profound conversation happening in the darkness. Finally, Ben spoke. If I let you go to Wyoming, I go with you. Non-negotiable. Tommy nodded. Okay. They drove through the night, arriving at the school as dawn broke. The scene was devastating. Media everywhere. Parents crying, children sitting in shocked silence. Tommy and Brave went to work immediately. They didn't approach anyone directly. They just sat in the designated comfort area and waited. Children came to them. First 1, then 2, then dozens. A girl named Amy was the hardest. She'd been in the classroom where it happened. She'd hidden under her desk, watching her best friend die. She hadn't spoken or cried since. Tommy sat with her for 3 hours. He didn't push, didn't ask questions, just sat with Brave between them, reading from his mother's journal, stories about resilience, about how flowers grow through concrete, about how stars are brightest in the darkest skies. Finally, Amy spoke. She was wearing her lucky bracelet, the one I made her. It didn't keep her safe. Lucky doesn't mean safe, Tommy said gently. Lucky means loved. She was wearing your love. She didn't die alone. Amy broke then, sobbing into Brave's fur. Her parents tried to intervene, but Tommy shook his head. She needs to cry. It's how the pain gets out. For 3 days, they stayed. Tommy worked 18-hour days, moving from child to child, letting Brave be the bridge between trauma and healing. By the time they left, the school counselor said he'd done more good than a team of psychiatrists. But Tommy paid a price. He started having nightmares again. Not about the cave this time, about all the pain he'd absorbed, all the stories he'd heard, all the grief he'd witnessed. Sarah found him one night sitting with Max, both of them staring at the stars. It's too much sometimes, Tommy admitted. All the hurt in the world. You can't carry it all, Sarah said. But if I don't, who will? We all carry a piece. That's why we need each other. She sat beside him. Your mom knew that. It's why she wrote the journal, so you wouldn't carry your grief alone. I miss her, Tommy said. I miss her so much, it feels like drowning sometimes. Max moved closer, pressing his warm body against Tommy's side. But then I remember, Tommy continued, that she's in every good thing I do, every child I help, every dog I save. She's not gone. She's just everywhere. Sarah wiped her eyes. You're an extraordinary child, Tommy Miller. No, Tommy said. I'm just a kid who listens to dogs. The years passed. Tommy grew, but his mission never wavered. By age 10, Jennifer's Place had become a national model for animal-assisted therapy. They had helped thousands of children, trained hundreds of dogs, inspired countless similar programs. But the biggest test came when Tommy was 12. Max was dying. The vet said it was cancer, aggressive, maybe weeks left. Tommy sat with the dog who'd started it all, remembering that day at the cave, how Max had refused to give up on Sarah, how he'd pulled Tommy from the collapsing tunnel, how he'd been there for every nightmare, every triumph, every moment that mattered. I don't know how to let you go, Tommy told Max. The dog, gray now around his muzzle, licked Tommy's hand. His eyes were still bright, still full of love. Sarah found them there. He's in pain, she said gently. I know. We have to help him. I know. The day came too soon. Tommy held Max as the vet, prepared the injection. Brave was there, and Luna, Storm, and Shadow. The whole pack saying goodbye to their leader. You were the best dog, Tommy whispered to Max. The very best. You taught me everything. How to be brave, how to love, how to never give up. I promise I'll keep teaching others what you taught me. Max's tail wagged weakly. He looked at Tommy with those brown eyes one last time, and Tommy saw peace there. The dog knew he was loved. He knew he'd mattered. He knew his legacy would continue. When Max's breathing stopped, Tommy sobbed like he hadn't since his mother died. But this time, he wasn't alone. Sarah held him. Ben held him. The dogs surrounded him. The entire town, it seemed, came to pay respects to the German shepherd who'd started a movement. They buried Max on the hill overlooking Jennifer's place. Tommy spoke at the memorial. Max showed us that love is an action, not a feeling. Every day for 13 years, he chose to love, to protect, to comfort. He never asked what was in it for him. He just gave everything he had. He looked out at the crowd, the detention kids who'd become volunteers, Lily who now talked non-stop, Daniel who'd become a peer counselor, Amy who wore her friend's bracelet and helped other trauma survivors. We're all here because a dog wouldn't give up on someone he loved. That's Max's legacy, not giving up. Not on ourselves, not on each other, not on the belief that love is stronger than fear. That night, Tommy found a package on his doorstep. No return address. Inside was a collar, Max's first collar from before Sarah found him. And a note. I was Max's first owner, the one who gave him up. I've followed your story all these years. I was wrong about him. He wasn't too aggressive. He was too loving for someone as cold as I was then. Thank you for showing him the human he deserved. Thank you for letting him show us the humans we could be. Tommy held the collar and cried again. But these were different tears, tears of gratitude, tears of completion. Years passed. Tommy did become a veterinarian, just like his mother. But he was also more. A teacher, a healer, a bridge between species. Jennifer's place grew into a nationwide network. The boy who'd crawled into a cave became a man who crawled into whatever darkness was needed to bring others to light. And always, always, there were dogs. Brave's puppies, their puppies. Generations of German shepherds and rescues and mutts who carried on Max's legacy of unfailing love. On the 20th anniversary of the cave rescue, they held a celebration. Tommy, now 25, stood before a crowd of thousands. Sarah, gray-haired but still strong. Ben, in a wheelchair now, but eyes still bright. Lily, studying to be a veterinarian herself. Daniel, who ran his own therapy program. Amy, who'd become a children's author, writing stories about healing. 20 years ago, Tommy began, 4 dogs cried for help. A 5-year-old boy answered. That should have been the end of the story. But love doesn't end. It ripples. It grows. It transforms everything it touches. He looked at the statue they would unveiled, a bronze German shepherd, sitting alert, watching over the entrance to Jennifer's place. Max isn't really gone. None of them are. Not my mother. Not the innocence lost in tragedies. Not the trust broken by trauma. They're all still here, transformed into something stronger, into compassion, into resilience, into the unshakable belief that we can save each other. Brave, ancient now, but still standing, walked slowly to Tommy's side. Together, they looked out at the sea of faces. Children who'd been helped. Adults who'd learned to help. Dogs wagging tails, ready to bridge any gap between hurt and healing. My mother wrote that we're here to love and be loved, Tommy concluded. Max showed us how. You've all proven it's possible, and tomorrow we'll wake up and prove it again. Because that's what love does. It wakes up every morning and chooses to try again. The crowd erupted in applause, but Tommy barely heard it. He was thinking about a scared little boy in a cave, about a dog who wouldn't give up, about a mother who left words when she couldn't leave herself. He was thinking about how one moment of choosing to help had become a lifetime of healing. As the celebration continued around him, Tommy slipped away to Max's grave. He sat in the grass, Brave beside him, and pulled out his mother's journal, worn to almost nothing now, held together with tape and love and 20 years of daily reading. He opened to a random page and read aloud, to Max, to his mother, to the universe that had conspired to turn tragedy into triumph. Love is the only thing that multiplies when you divide it. Give half your heart to a dog, and somehow you end up with twice as much love as before. That's the miracle. That's the magic. That's the reason we're here. Tommy closed the journal and looked at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Each one a light in the darkness. Each one a promise that even the darkest night ends. Thank you, he whispered, to Maximum, to his mother, to every dog who taught him that love wasn't just an emotion, but a choice, made new every day, to keep going, keep helping, keep believing that broken things could be made whole again. Brave leaned against him, and together they watched the sun set on one chapter and rise on another, because that's what love does. It continues, it persists, it never, ever gives up. The story of the 4 German shepherds crying from a cave had become legend. But the real story, the one that mattered, was still being written. In every child who found comfort in fur, in every dog who found purpose in service, in every person who chose to answer when someone cried for help. Tommy stood, old soul in a young man's body, and walked back to the celebration. There was work to do, children to help, dogs to train, love to multiply by dividing it among everyone who needed it. His mother had been right. The size of your body didn't matter, only the size of your heart. And his heart, like Max's, like his mother's, was infinite. The celebration went late into the night. Stories were shared, tears were shed, laughter rang out. And through it all, the dogs were there, watching, protecting, loving without condition or limit. As the last guest left, Tommy stood with Sarah and Ben, looking at what they had built together. "Did you ever imagine?" Sarah asked. "That day at the cave." "Did you imagine this?" Tommy shook his head. "I just wanted to help. I heard crying, and I answered." "And change the world," Ben added. "No," Tommy corrected. "Max changed the world. I just translated." They laughed, but it was true in a way. The dogs had always known what humans had to learn, that love was stronger than fear, that loyalty could overcome any obstacle, that sometimes the smallest acts of courage created the biggest waves of change. As they locked up Jennifer's place for the night, Tommy made his rounds, checking on each dog, making sure they had water, comfortable beds, the knowledge that they were loved. At Brave's kennel, he stopped. The old dog was sleeping, paws twitching in dreams. "Still chasing rabbits?" Tommy asked softly. Or maybe Brave was dreaming of that day so long ago when a little boy chose him and he chose the boy right back. When they became partners in a mission neither fully understood but both completely committed to. Tommy thought about all the children who would come tomorrow, broken hearts seeking mending, scared souls seeking comfort, and the dogs would be ready. They were always ready, because that's what love did. It showed up again and again until the healing happened. The moon was full as Tommy finally headed home. In his pocket, his mother's journal. On his wrist, a bracelet made from Max's collar. In his heart, 20 years of proof that his mother had been right about everything. Love didn't end with death, it just changed form. Like water becoming rain, becoming rivers, becoming oceans. Always moving, always present, always finding its way back home. And home, Tommy had learned, wasn't a place. It was anywhere love was given and received. Anywhere dogs and humans met in the middle of their mutual need and found they could save each other. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new children who'd lost too much, new dogs who'd been thrown away. But it would also bring new chances to prove that love was the strongest force in the universe. Tommy smiled, thinking of his 6-year-old self, so certain that he could help, so determined to answer the cry for help. That little boy had been right. He could help. They all could. All they had to do was listen for the crying and answer. All they had to do was choose love over fear. All they had to do was never give up, just like Max taught them, just like his mother knew they would. The story that started with 4 German shepherds crying from a cave had become something bigger than anyone could have imagined. It had become proof that in a world full of darkness, there were always lights. Sometimes they had 4 legs and wet noses. Sometimes they were 5-year-old boys with more courage than sense. Sometimes they were mothers who left words when they couldn't leave themselves. But always, always they were love in action. And love in action could save the world. One dog, one child, one moment of choosing to help at a time, forever and always. Just like Max, just like Jennifer, just like the love that connected them all. If this story touched your heart, please like and share it with someone who needs to hear that love never gives up. Comment below about a time when an animal showed you what unconditional love really means. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories that will restore your faith in the power of compassion. Remember, somewhere out there, a dog is waiting to teach someone that they matter, that they're loved, that they're worth saving. Maybe that someone is you.